Okay, so as promised, here is a recording of the code that we wrote in class on October 17th. I'm gonna go through the coding exercise building the COVID Q Vadis app, this app right here. Follow along, and by the end of this video, you should have your hybrid assignment, hybrid number 3, ready to submit. I'm not gonna go through all the lectures, all the previous details. I'm only going to do the coding exercise in this video. So let's get started. So open up your Android Studio. You should be at your welcome screen right here. We're going to create a new project. I will go a little fast, but you do have the option, of course, to pause the video, slow it down, whatnot. So here we are. We have some options. We're going to choose the empty activity and hit next. Let's give it a name. We're calling it COVID Vadis. If I can spell that correctly, and there we go. This is the package name. By standards, it's reverse domain name. So if I had a domain name, I used to have this domain name, kareemshalot.com. So it's reversed. I highly recommend you buy yourname.com or .ca. That becomes your portfolio. You can also use it for package names, not just in Android Studio, but there's lots of other web frameworks that require a unique package name. It has to be unique because if you were to submit this in the App Store, in the Google Play Store, it has to be unique globally, so it cannot match any other package name of any other app on there. So yours might say com.example, just change example to your name, and the name of the app should automatically populate from the name field. Here's the default location where it's going to save your app. So in your home directory, there's an Android Studio projects folder, and it automatically creates a new folder for your app. This is a good place to keep all your Android apps. That way you always know where any Android app is. But if you have another special folder structure, that's perfectly fine. You can use that. We're going to target the minimum SDK of Android 7, which is API 24, same thing. Yeah, I already explained this in class, so I won't go through it again here. And we're going to use Kotlin as the language. So let's get started. Hit finish. And it's on the other screen. There we go. All right, so that's going to take a minute to build and populate all the files. In the meantime, while it's doing that, let's have a look at what we're going to build. So here's our home screen, the only screen. So we're building a single screen application. At the top here, we have a text element. It's called a composable, text composable. Then we have 3 composables grouped together. We're going to call this our counting widget. So that's made up of 2 button composables and a text composable in between them. And then another text composable at the bottom that tells us what the maximum capacity is. Quick overview. So this is a basic counting app or a counter app. It keeps track of a variable and it displays that variable, and the UI reacts to the change of the variable as we change it. The idea here is during COVID, you were only allowed to have a certain number of people in one room. So here we will decide what the maximum capacity of a room is, and we will keep track of people as they go in and out. And we cannot have negative number of people in a room, so it can't be less than 0. So we're going to handle that. And we don't want to exceed the maximum capacity, so we're going to handle that as well using if statements. These 3 composables, I'm counting this as one composable with subcomposables in it. So these 3 composables are arranged in a column, and we're going to see how to do that. And they're evenly spaced out. And this composable, which is embedded in this column, is arranged in a row, and they're also evenly spaced out, and we're going to see how to handle that. So that's the basic structure of the UI. So let's go ahead and build that. So our project should be done building by now. So I won't re-explain the folder structure. Just trying to make that smaller. Why is that not working? Okay, it doesn't want to cooperate. But here's our main activity. It's already open, and you're going to find that in the Kotlin and Java folder under the first subfolder. And here, this file is already open. Later, we're going to refer to one of the resource files. Here's the drawable file. If you want to, there's a challenge that I posted here. I'd like you to go ahead and see if you can add an image composable on your own. It's not necessary for the hybrid. This is optional if you'd like to challenge yourself. Please go ahead and do that. There's a link to the image documentation right here. So this is how you would normally figure something out in a real world scenario. Documentation, documentation, documentation. And just a hint, you want to look at these, so loading an image and whatnot. This is how you would use it. Okay, so I'll let you do that on your own. We are going to use the strings value file. So here we can store strings and give them a variable name, and then instead of actually hard coding the string into our app, we would just call the variable name instead. The biggest reason for this is for translating your app into multiple languages or more than one language. Instead of hard coding text into your app, you would put all the text in here, translate that file, and then depending on which language you choose, you just tell your app to point to that particular file. So if it's German, then you would point to the German strings file. If it's French, point to the French strings file, and by default, of course, it's the English one. So we're going to play with that a little later. There we go. Now I can adjust that. Let's see what we have here so far. So let me just collapse all of this to get a good overview. If you accidentally turn that on, that's just a debugger break. Click on it and again it goes away. You don't want to run your app with any of these red diamonds, because your app is actually going to stop right there, and that's used for debugging. So we have a package name, we have imports, we have a class, and we have two functions so far. This is the package name that we set. If you're going to copy the file from GitHub or anywhere else, make sure that the package name matches your package name, not mine, and also the last import statement here as well. Make sure that this portion here matches your package name, or else you're going to get errors. Okay, so we have our imports. We have a class. You're going to learn all about object-oriented programming and classes next semester, I think it is. But for now, all you really need to know is here we have an onCreate function. This is the starting point of our application. It's what the compiler is going to look for to start running your app. And this stuff is a little out of scope for what we need to know, but what you need to know for now is here you have a greeting function inside the onCreate function. So right now all we're doing is we're calling this greeting function. We're passing it a modifier that allows you to style your composables, and we're passing it a name. And here's the function itself. So, whoops, I'm just going to open that. So it takes two parameters. It takes name, and that's of type string, and it takes the modifier object, and we're gonna see how the modifier object works shortly. It's inside of the greeting function. We have a text composable, and it takes the text hello and whatever name is being passed. In this case, it's being passed the Android name, and it's taking the modifier, but it's not doing anything with the modifier just yet. And then this is a preview function. So again, it takes greeting and it's just passing it a name, same name. This preview function is to run our preview. So up here, you have three icons. this is where we're at right now with code. And you can see it flash up there for a second. There we go, code. This is the split view. So here is my preview. Just need to build and refresh. And the third one is only the preview view. So the split view is probably the best one. If you click on it one more time, it'll put it at the bottom, but it's probably easier to see here. So give that a second to build and initiate. So it says no preview found, it just needs to refresh. Usually to fix this, I just run the emulator and that will automatically refresh the preview pane. I wish I had a pause button so I can pause the recording while we're waiting for stuff to happen. But I only have a stop button. All right, there we go. So preview is loading and our app is being installed. There's our app. So there's two differences between the preview and the actual app. I'm just going to minimize the emulator for now. So here, this is what our preview is previewing, whatever is inside this function. So if I was to change this name to something else, that'll update my preview. There we go. But if I rerun the app, click here to reopen it, it's still loading, but once it's done loading, you're going to see that it still says Android because there it is. So this one says hello Android, this says hello Kareem, because, let's close this, here we're still passing the name Android, but in our preview we're passing the name Kareem. So just be aware of that the preview and what the actual onCreate function is running, this is what's actually going to run on a device, not the preview. The preview is just for you to view the UI, because every time you make a change to the app and you want to run it on the emulator, it has to compile, build, and reinstall the app on the emulator. It takes a minute or so. Like, this is a fairly small app, so it'll probably be done in like 20 to 30 seconds. If you had a bigger app, it could take up to 30 minutes or more, depending on how large your application is. So while we build the UI, we're just going to use the preview pane. Okay. So let's go ahead and I'm just going to stop the emulator for now, just because the fan on my laptop is going a little nuts. Let's start by building the overall display, which is this one here. This overall display that's going to hold all of our sub-composables. So the overall display is also composable. So let's use this existing greeting function that we already have. So I'm just going to change that to display. And we'll leave the modifier in there for now, but we don't need to pass it a name. So that means I need to get rid of, well, I would have to get rid of this whole thing for now, because text composable expects text in it, so it's going to give me an error if I delete the text. So delete all of that for now. Up here as well, so we're not going to pass a name anymore. There's no text composable, and we're going to change that again to display. And same with the preview function. So I'm not going to pass it anything anymore. And display. Okay. So in here, there's three things I'd like to display. We're going to display a title. And the function doesn't exist yet. We're going to create it. We're going to display the counting widget. And we're going to display the room capacity composable. Okay, so three functions that we need to create in order to display them. And like I mentioned in class, we're using Pascal case, not camel case, for all composable functions. They must start with a capital. Okay, so let's create these three functions. So we have, first we have to tell the compiler it's composable by using the composable decorator. And we're going to say fun for function. Oops. title. It's not going to take anything. Leave the body empty for now. Again, composable decorator, and use the, sorry, my computer is lagging a little bit. When the menu right here gives you suggestions, use those suggestions. This will eliminate error, save you time, and it's also gonna automatically import statements that you need, and we'll see that in the future coming up. So our counting widget, no arguments, empty body for now, and finally our room capacity. Computer's lagging a little bit. There we go. Our room capacity function. There we go. No arguments, empty body for now. Okay. So in our title, let's go ahead and create the title. So that's going to be a text composable. For now, just put your name. We're not gonna hard code the title. We're gonna get it from the string resource file. So there's my name. Next, our counting widget. So our counting widget has 3 composables in it. Let's have a look at the screenshot. So we got a button, text, button, and they're organized in a row. They're arranged in a row. So button composable. So use the shortcuts, so that way it automatically, because I used the shortcut from the menu, the suggested shortcut, it automatically imported the button import for me right there. Okay. If you didn't do that, if you just if you press Alt Enter, it'll give you the option to import it if it's highlighted in red or if it's in red text. We'll see that coming up in other steps. The button function, button composable, takes one argument, a callback function called onClick. And the body of the onClick function will go here. We'll just leave it blank for now. And in the body of the button function, it's called a lambda function. It goes here. You don't have to memorize these terms. I'm just telling you what the proper terminology is. We need the text of the button. So it takes another text composable. And in there, you would just type what the text of the button is. So in this case, it's -1. Oops, what did I just do? There we go. After the first button, we need a text composable that's going to display our count. So just a text composable. For now, we'll hard code it with 0. And then another button. So here, when the menu pops up, it already has button up here highlighted. I'm going to press Enter. Well, the import statement for the button is already there, so that wouldn't have been an issue because I already used button before, but if it was the first time, that's how you trigger the automatic import. And then we're going to give it the onClick callback function. We'll leave it empty for now. And again, we're going to give it a text, and this time it is +1. Okay. You see everything looks horrible. It's just stacked on top of each other. So let's fix that. So up here, what we want to do, we're going to stick these inside a column function. It allows us to stack things in a column. So we just highlight it. You can say surround. Where is it here? Surround with widget and surround with column. Okay, and that also automatically imports column for us right there. Okay. All right. So everything is in a column. Oh, we forgot to add our room capacity, so that also takes a text composable. So text composable, and it's gonna say, what's it gonna say? I forgot to open up my my notes on this. Here it is. The maximum room capacity is, and whatever the room capacity is. So say the maximum room, and just make up a number for now. We'll just say 9. And there we go. So we have everything stacked in a column, but everything is kind of squished in the middle. If we were to see what that looks like on the emulator, everything will kind of be in the top left corner. While the emulator is loading, we'll go back up here. And there it is, everything's in the top left corner. And it's even hiding, or it's sitting on top of the taskbar right here. So it's not what we want. So we'll just close that for now. So here in our column, we're going to give it some arguments. So open bracket. And the first thing that we want to do is we want this to fill the entire screen, our little view here. So here we'll use the modifier. So modifier, that's just the label, that's the property name, is equal to the actual modifier object with a capital M. And then we can say dot, and it should give you a whole bunch of options. So here's the option we want, it's the third one down. It might not be the third on yours, but it's in that list. If you just start typing, it'll start to search. So we want to fill max size, not width, not height. Max size does both, width and height. So fill max size, and there we go. So the screen is nice and full. Next, I want to center it, so comma, give it another argument, and we'll say, sorry, I'm just looking at my notes here. We want to center it horizontally, so there's horizontal alignment, that one right there. And we want to align it, so first option, alignment dot horizontal. Again, it might not come up as the first option for you, but if you just start typing, it'll automatically search. So here it is, alignment dot center horizontally. And there we go, so it's centered horizontally. And now we want to spread it out, so everything is scrunched to the top. So we want to arrange them. So if you guys have been paying attention in Adam's class, I think you've studied Flexbox already. So the arrangement in Android Studio works exactly the same as Flexbox. There is vertical arrangement and horizontal arrangement. So we want a vertical one. So there it is, vertical arrangement equals arrange. So arrange, so you've got space between, space around, center, top, so on and so forth. It's just like, exactly like Flexbox. So we'll go with space between. So it'll push everything to the top and bottom edges. There we go. And I shouldn't have to scroll for that. I think it's just because I have a zoom applied. Hopefully on yours you shouldn't have to scroll. But there we go. So everything's pushed to the edges. Now I don't want the title all the way to the edge, and I don't want this all the way to the bottom edge. So let's put some padding to do that. So in our title, let's spread this out. So this little gray text, that's tag from Android Studio. I'm going to just to get rid of that tag and make things consistent, you can actually just write text equals just like that. So we're going to give it text, and we're also going to add some padding. So we need to call on our modifier. So that's the property name, and then it's going to equal to the modifier object dot padding. And I only want top padding, so top equals, and we're going to give it 24 dot dp. dp stands for density independent pixels. Different screen sizes and different devices have different resolutions, so this abstracts that logic in the background. It'll automatically, it should automatically look the same on all screen sizes. Android operating system looks after that automatically. So notice here, this is red, and it's asking me, this is the actual import statement with a question mark, so it's asking me, is this what you want? Do you want to import this? If we look up here, you're not going to find DPs anywhere. But as soon as we hit Option Enter, so make sure the cursor is there, we hit Option Enter, it's going to ask you import extension property int.tp. That's the one we want. Click it so it's not red anymore. And there it is. Okay. So Option Enter, when you see something red or even yellow on your screen, Option Enter will give you a list of options to choose from to fix what the issue might be. So there we go. So we got our top padding. So here I'm gonna hit Command Option L, and that just auto formats. So that just move the bracket down here. It'll fix the spacing and everything. So now let's do the same for the bottom here. Let's give it some bottom margin or bottom padding. So just to be consistent, I'm just going to put this on a new line and say text equals, and then at the end over here, say comma, and then the next argument is the modifier. Modifier equals the modifier object dot padding, and I want bottom, and we're going to set it to, let's see here, 36 DPs. So 36.dp density independent pixels. Okay, I'm going to do Command Option L just to adjust my format. And there we go. Got some padding here, got some padding there. Now let's fix this here. This should be arranged in a row. So same thing we did earlier. We're going to come to our counting widget composable function. I'm going to highlight all the things that I want to wrap in a row, and I'm going to hover over the light bulb, surround widget, surround with widget, and surround with row, and that automatically imports the row function. Again, it's going to take some arguments so we can modify the way it looks. So let's start with so in order to spread this out, before we spread it out, it has to take up the maximum width. So you see there's a little box around the row, the parent of all the elements. So if I was to arrange them with, like, say, space around or space between or something like that, they're not going to move because there's no room for them to move. So the first thing we have to do is give them room to move by saying modifier equals the modifier object, and we want to fill max width in this case. Okay, only the width. So there you go. So now we have the space. So now they're scrunched over to the left. So now we can spread them to fill that space out. So comma, we're going to do a horizontal arrangement. And that's going to be arrange dot, and let's go with space around this time. That way it won't stick the buttons all the way to the edge. There'll be space around the entire element. Okay. Now let's adjust, let's modify the fonts. Let's start at the top. So here, let's actually bring in the name that we want. So in our strings.xml file right here, we have the app name right here. It's called app name. Before we bring that in, let me just show you how to create a string resource. So instead of hard coding my name here, let's turn it into a string resource. So I'm going to highlight it, hover over the light bulb, and extract string resource right here. So resource name, so we'll call it my underscore name, and then the value is your actual name. Okay, and take all the default settings for that, hit OK. Now if we look at our strings.xml file, there we go. But so it's saved, and let's see what happened in the main activity. So it changed to string resource, which is a function, and it takes R, which is an object that holds all of your resources, dot string. So I don't want the colors, I don't want the theme, I want the string resource dot my name. So instead of my name, I want my app, or sorry, app name. So let's just delete that, but I'm also going to delete the period just to show you, because once you hit period, it'll give you a list of all the available string resources. And I want the first one that's already highlighted, app name, so I'm going to hit enter. Give it a sec to update, and there we go. So we have our app name as the title. Let's format that to make it look like the screenshot that we have. So we're going to start with, so we've got our top padding. So after the top padding, I'm going to say comma to give my text composable another argument. I'm going to say font size, and that's going to equal to 46.sp, not dp. So sp is simple pixels, and this is how we measure text size in Android Studio. So again, it's red and it's asking me if I want to import it. So I'm going to say option enter, and it's imported. That little red light bulb will go away in a second. If we come up here just to confirm, there it is. So both my SPs and DPs are together right here. So it's nice because it also groups import statements together when you use the auto import. Keeps things nice and clean. After that, we're gonna make it italic. So we'll say font style in this case, and that's gonna equal to a font style object. So font style, and it's gonna give you some options. Actually, there's the option we want right there. So font style dot italic, and give it a second to update, and there it is. You can play more with fonts if you like. Check out the documentation. You can also chain as many modifiers as you want. So let's say I want to put more modifiers. Just keep chaining them back to back. So for example, say this one here, background. Give it a color. There's a color object that lets you use simple colors. So color dot, and then you can choose whichever color you want from here, and go yellow, for example. And there you go. And any other modifiers, you would just continue to chain and add them on. Okay, so I'm going to take this out for now. Just wanted to show you that you can chain as many modifiers as you want. Next, let's style our button and the text view in between the buttons. So here, we'll just leave that as a one-liner, just to illustrate to you that you could use shorthand and do this. And we'll just say font size, and we're going to set that to 36 SPs, 36.sp. We'll do the same. Where's my mouse? There we go. I'm just going to copy that, and do the same for the other button right here. There you go. Now let's style the text. Same thing, but we'll say 48 SPs. There. It's starting to look like it should now. So finally we'll modify or we'll style this guy here. So I think all we did was make it bigger and make it bold. So do font size. We'll set that to 18.sp, and we'll do font weight for bold. So there's a font weight object as well. It gives you shortcuts to things like bold. So there's bold right there, font weight.bold. And there you go. And of course, feel free to modify that further. Get rid of that period just because it looks weird. And there's our UI. Our UI is complete, but the buttons don't work. The buttons will never work in the preview pane regardless. But let's run the app. Buttons and functionality will only run on a device or in the emulator. The preview pane is only for viewing the UI. There it is, looks good. The buttons They're clickable because they're of type button, but they don't do anything. So let's give them some brains. Let's give them some functionality. So we will start. So the first thing we want to do, we don't want to hard code the 0. That should be a variable. So if we say var, so var is how you would declare a mutable variable in Kotlin. That means you can rewrite this variable over and over. If you want to be immutable, we say val for value. Kotlin, it's the same as const in JavaScript. It won't let you rewrite. So because this is going to be a variable that's going to be always changing, we want to make it a var, count, set it to 0, and then here, your text composable can only take a string, so we have to use quotes, and then we just pass in the count variable by saying $count. And just to show you that that worked, let's change, oh, I forgot the equal sign. So let's just change it to something other than 0 for now, just to see that it works. And there it is, 6. And I'll change it back to 0. And there we go. Okay. Now, the subtract 1 button is going to be the same as count minus minus. However, this is not going to work. We'll explain that in a second, and we'll say count plus plus. So this will increment, that will decrement. Of course, the preview, that'll not work in the preview pane, but if we run the emulator, and when we click the buttons, in memory, count will actually change, but the UI has no idea that it's changing. It's not being reflected in the UI. So we need to bind this variable to our UI. And how do we do that? And this is really the essence of state management and advanced web development. And it's why frameworks like React and Svelte and Flutter were created. And it's where the name React came from, because the UI can now react to, it gives you a framework to allow the UI to react to the state of your application. So how is this done in Android? So in Android, we would do something like this. We would declare, we would say var variable, we declare a variable, give it a name, and then we use the keywords by remember. Now, as you type remember, again, when the menu pops up, it has to be imported. So I'm gonna hit enter right there. So that should import the remember keyword. Then in here, we're gonna say mutable state of. So again, it needs to be imported, so I'm going to use the menu, mutable state of, then I'm going to have to give it an initial value. Whoops, 0. So that will be our starting value. Now it's still going to complain. There's still more import statements that are needed. So if we look at what we have so far, I'm just going to get rid of this color one, I'm not using it. Here's our remember, and here's our mutable state of. But there's 2 more import statements. We need to be able to set a value and get a value. This is done in the background. Android Studio abstracts that for you. So if we just click on this, and here it's recommending that I import the get value import statement. So option enter. And again, I have to import the set value function. So option enter again. That work, option enter. It didn't work the first time I did it. There we go. So in order for this statement to work, you need 4 imports. You need the set value, remember, mutable state of, and get value. So all these import statements just for that one line of code to work. Okay. So now our count variable is bound to this composable, because this is where we're viewing it. So now if we run the app again, and we click our increment and decrement buttons, our UI should respond. There we go. So if you're with me so far, good job. So you've got the core functionality of the app, except there's a problem. You can't have negative people in a room, and you cannot exceed whatever the maximum capacity is. Okay, so let's solve these two problems. So let's start with the 0 problem. So you can't have negative people in a room. So I want to prevent my counter from going below 0, and I also want to display a warning message if somebody clicks -1 and there's 0 people in a room. So we'll do that with if statements, of course. So over here, instead of count minus minus, I'm going to say if count is equal to 0. Comparison operator, double equals. If it's equal to 0, I would like to display a warning message. If it's not equal to 0, so else, then we will go ahead and decrement count minus minus. Decrement our count variable by 1. So let's build this display message. So there's something called a toast in Android. If you have an Android phone, you might be familiar with it. It gives you a little pop-up in the lower portion of the screen. Only lasts a couple seconds, few seconds. Let's see how we build it. So in Android, we have an object called toast. And we'll say dot, and first option right there, it says make text. It might not be the first option for you, but if you start typing, it'll search. So make text, and make text takes 3 arguments. It's already giving us a hint here. It wants a context, it wants some text, and it wants a duration. We're gonna define what the context is in a second. This just tells it where do you want to display this toast message. So it's going to be red for now because we haven't defined what it is. Then I want to actually give it a message, so we'll say something like there's no one left in the room. And then how long do I want this to flash on the screen? You could give it an actual time, but see duration int, but Android Studio actually gives you 2 variables to use that are pre-installed. Let me just make this visible here. Actually, we'll just close this for now. So say dot, and here it is. You have length long and length short. Difference, I don't know what the actual duration is, but they're relatively short. Difference between them is like 1 or 2 seconds. So let's go for long, just to give us time to view it. So there we go. Now let's define what the context is. So in Java and other languages, so I'm going to say this is going to be a val, so immutable context. In other languages, you would simply say something like this. And I do believe this works in Java, but it doesn't work in Kotlin. So I want it, the context is this actual composable that we're in, this screen that we're on. So in Kotlin, we would say local context, just like that, dot current. Okay, and so that gives us the context. Now, when this function is called, it's being called up here in the display, and display is being called on the onCreate function, in the onCreate function. But it's only going to show when I tell it to show, and I don't want it to show just yet. I only want it to show when this condition is met. So let's save this inside a variable. So I'm going to say val, we'll call it the 0 toast is equal to that. And then I'm going to call it here, or I'm going to display it here. So I'm going to say if this condition is true, if count is equal to 0, I want 0 toast dot show. So I want to show it. All right. Else we're going to decrement. So let's see if this works. Run our emulator. 0, I go to -1, there's no one left in the room. Awesome. And this doesn't change. We can still go up. We haven't satisfied our upper limit, so we can keep going forever. But our code doesn't even know what the upper limit is. So we need to declare a variable. So right now we have 9 as hard-coded. So we need to declare a variable to tell our code what our upper limit is. So we fixed the lower limit. There we go. Just going to minimize that. And I'm going to need to set it as the global variable. Why? Because it's going to be used by more than one function. It's going to be used by this function, because we're not going to hard code the actual number. We're going to put a variable in here instead. And it's also going to be used by our counting widget function, because we need to specify here, we're going to say if count, missing a bracket, count is equal to our max capacity, which is a variable that does not exist yet. If it is equal to the max capacity and we press the increment button again, we're going to display a warning message again. A different warning message this time. Else, we're going to go ahead and do the increment. Okay, so nothing happens if we're at capacity except displaying the warning message. So count doesn't do anything. The code doesn't do anything else except display the toast message. So let's create this global variable. So we'll go all the way to the top. We'll do it right before. So this is the closing bracket for the class. So we'll do it right below that. And it's going to be an immutable variable. We don't want to overwrite it. And we already named it as max capacity, and that's going to equal, let's just say 5 for now. I'm going to open up my display pane here, my preview pane. So I have 9 as hard-coded. We don't want to hard code anything. So we're going to change that to the actual max capacity variable. So right here. So $sign max capacity, just like that. And there we go. Now it says 5. So whenever we change this, it'll reflect. So if I change it, say 4, there it is, 4. All right. So close that to make some space. Now we need another toast message. So we can duplicate what we have here. It's going to have the same context. So command, after you highlight everything, command D to duplicate. Spacing's a little messed up, so that should be on a new line right here. And we give it a different name, so we'll call it the max toast. Max toast. We'll change, oh, there's a typo here. It should say, there we go. And this will say something like room is at capacity. Okay, and now we just show our toast message right here. So we want to take our max toast, that guy right there, dot show. And that should do it. So let's rerun our app. There we go, we got our max capacity set to 4. Our lower limit still works, there's no one left in the room. We'll go to 1, wait for that to disappear, 2, 3, 4, and then we try to add a 5th person. It doesn't allow us, room is at capacity. That's it, and congratulations, you're done. You just built your first Android app. So go ahead and take a screenshot of this exactly. So do Command Option 5. It's not going to let me because I'm actually using the screen recorder right now. But Command Option 5, screenshot this whole window, maximize it for clarity, and upload it to Brightspace.